So I've just put some fold marks, ripples of the fabric marks in here. I've basically just mixed up a little washy version of the green and the purple, and I've just used a line just to suggest some folds and ripples in the fabric, and then I've just blended that away to water. So I'm suggesting, taking a photograph of the work of the setup, and I'm just trying to suggest this section here so it's shadowy behind, so you'd put your watercolour there behind the fabric as such, and then it's again shadowy here. So this is how we're sort of defining the shapes, but it's only a suggestion. As you can see, it's not a real interpretation of it, it's just a kind of suggestive thing really, because I want the background still to look quite abstract. So, and now I'm going to put a little bit of shadowing underneath the objects, just to lift those just a touch. I had put some in, but it didn't really feel like it was strong enough, so I'm just adding a bit more of that, and that will just help to push them forward. So where the shadow line seems hard, sometimes we want it that way, but if it is looking a little bit too hard, then you basically just need to just blend that away with some plain water on your brush like that, and then get a tissue just to soften that out. So I think that's starting to push those objects at me a little bit more strongly, and then by the time I've put all the detail into the shell and feather there, they're going to look a lot more photographic against quite a soft background. Just starting to work now on a little bit of detail on the shell, using a much finer brush. I keep drying it off in between, so I'm going to keep the sharpness of what I'm doing. I'm using browns and purples here, so I'm just picking out the markings on the shell. They're quite random, so you know you can use a bit of artistic license on this. So once you've got some markings in, you still need to make this feel like it's not completely flat, it's a little bit rounded. So I'd get a little bit of paler colour here, just to make that look like it's just got a little edge on it, a little soft roundness to it. Again on this side. So work your way across the shell, and the shell's really defined by the dips in the ridges here, so we can only really see the ridges because we're looking at the shadows, so you've got to pick your shadow side really and stick to it. So it's that one there, and then it'll be that one there, and follow that all the way across. It's easy to get lost. As far as the feather is concerned, I'm just going to have fun getting the markings in really. So I'm using very feathery, simple, short, dry brush mark lines. Just a series of, I'm going to keep on drying my brush so that I just have a bare amount of paint on there. So this dry brush effect works very well for feathers and things like that. You just got a lot more, it just brings a lot more texture to it. So again, not perfect, but just you can see the individual parts of the feather, just follow the line, follow the direction, and if you keep to that angle, then it will look convincing as you work through. So that's quite pale brown at the minute, and then what I'd do is I'd go back and strengthen up that colour, just keep standing away from it really, double checking that it's looking like you want it to. I've definitely interpreted this feather in my own way. I've taken the essence of it, but by no means is it the actual feather. I've redrawn it and it actually is a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to keep on working at it. This is the bit that I enjoy, the detail bit. So you can take your time over this. So I'm going to finish off this piece now, putting lots of little bits of detail into the shell, little tiny dot marks, maybe using a smaller brush even than this, trying to emphasize those shadow areas in between each of those little sections, like so. And then getting into a little bit of dry brush work on the pattern on the cloth. So that means basically putting your brush into your paint and then drying off a little bit so it's almost completely gone, and then using that very dry brush just to define some of these patterns on the, in this case it's a chiffon scarf with a printed flower on it. So it's a very free design, so if there's a bit of variation on my illustration it doesn't matter so much. So I'm just going to work across this and it's almost finished.